We'd been piecing together evidence for months, but tonight our monitoring unit lost all contact with your dad. His last transmission was that urgent text he sent you, right before his phone went dark. The words hit me like punches to the gut, and I clutched the payphone receiver tightly to stay upright. Carol wasn't just going through marital problems or behaving oddly. She was a convicted level offender under active federal scrutiny. Brian had been secretly cooperating with the FBI as well, gathering details against his own spouse, and something went terribly wrong this evening, leading to his desperate alert. Where is he right now? Is he okay? Agent Johnson paused before answering. We don't know. He was due to report in 4 hours earlier from his hotel in Seattle, and he never did. His phone's last signal traced to the hotel, then vanished. We're sending agents to search the place now, but his silence plus that message to you indicates he felt he was in serious peril. Emma was clutching my sleeve so hard that her nails dug in, absorbing every word of my conversation with growing dread. What sort of threat? Why would Carol want to harm him? Yet even as I asked, memories that once seemed ordinary now carried ominous weight in this new light. Carol's repeated, unexplained disappearances. Her evasive answers whenever Brian asked about her business accounts. She began locking everything on her phone and laptop with passwords. Drops. The individuals your mother is involved with aren't the kind to spare anyone who might talk if they think their scheme is compromised. If they learned your father was helping us, he'd be a loose end they'd tie up permanently. And if they've reached him, you and your sister become potential threats who understand his routines and could recognize partners. That's why his text insisted you leave immediately. The full gravity of the risk crashed over me, and I finally understood Brian's precise, frantic instructions in that late-night message. We weren't escaping typical family discord. We were running from people who had eliminated informants in financial schemes. What should we do? Where can we go? Agent Johnson gave me the location of an FBI satellite office 50 miles north. Head there right away without using cards or personal phones, except for true emergencies. If you spot your mother or anyone suspicious, call 911 instantly. I've sent teams to retrieve you, but they'll need 50 minutes. Stay hidden and keep moving until they arrive. I ended the call and explained it all to Emma, watching her face cycle through disbelief, panic, and reluctant understanding. At 14, she was processing that our mom was a criminal. Our dad was missing and possibly gone forever, and we were evading people who had killed over money crimes. It was overwhelming for anyone, but crushing for a kid who'd gone to sleep worried about schoolwork and friendships. A taxi service ran from the shopping center across the road, so we hurried over, scanning constantly for Carol's silver SUV. The dispatcher sounded sleepy but agreed to send a vehicle when we gave a pickup spot. I provided an address 3 blocks away from the FBI office. Even harmless-looking cab companies make me wary about sharing exact destinations. The car arrived 20 minutes later, an old sedan driven by a guy who seemed annoyed at being called out late. Emma and I climbed into the back, and I paid him cash up front, telling him to drive carefully and stick to side streets. He shot me a strange glance before taking the money and leaving the parking lot. We'd gone about 4 miles when headlights appeared fast in the rearview mirror. The driver noticed, muttered under his breath, and sped up a bit. Somebody's been tailing us since we pulled out, probably some reckless fools messing around. But I turned to check and spotted Carol's SUV, close enough to make out her expression through the windshield, focused and unyielding. That's our mom, I told the driver. She's dangerous. We have to shake her now. He looked at me like I was unhinged until Carol's vehicle rammed us from behind, jolting Emma and me forward against the seats. The driver cursed louder and pressed the accelerator hard. Carol hit us again, and the worn-out cab responded slowly. We were on a quiet rural stretch with almost no other cars. The absolute worst spot for a chase. Carol drew level with us, and now I could see her clearly. Her features twisted into something unrecognizable. She was trying to run us off the pavement. Her SUV was bigger and stronger than the cab. Carol slammed into our side repeatedly, making the driver freak out and jerk the wheel to stay on the road. Emma was screaming, and I was dialing 911, shouting our location and the situation to an operator who kept asking me to slow down and repeat details. Carol landed one final heavy blow, and the cab lost control, spinning twice before sliding into a shallow ditch. Even with seatbelts, the crash threw us around inside, and my forehead smacked the dashboard hard enough to blur my vision. Carol's SUV stopped, and I watched her get out, striding toward our wrecked cab with purpose. The driver was slumped over the steering wheel, dazed or out cold, and Emma was crying beside me. I seized her hand and kicked the opposite door open, dragging her into the roadside ditch. We bolted into the brush and shadows, with Carol calling out behind us. Her voice echoed in the still night. "Girls! Wait! I'm trying to keep you safe. The FBI is deceiving you. Your father is deceiving you. I just want to explain." But her behavior contradicted her claims. It didn't fit someone shielding us, it fit someone intent on harm. The ditch connected to a pipe under the road, and we scrambled through it, emerging on the far side covered in mud and scratches. In the distance, sirens approached. My 911 call had finally brought help. Carol must have heard them too, because her shouting stopped, and I caught the roar of her engine as she sped away, tires screeching. Patrol cars arrived with flashing lights, and officers leaped out to examine the accident and sweep the surroundings. We stumbled out from the pipe, arms raised, shouting that we'd called 911 and were the ones attacked. One officer advanced carefully, hand near his weapon, while his partner checked the driver, who was starting to stir. I rushed through the explanation while Emma buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing. The officer seemed skeptical until I mentioned FBI Special Agent Megan Johnson's name and showed the text from Brian. His attitude shifted immediately. He keyed his radio with coded phrases, then told us to sit in his cruiser while he verified everything. 25 minutes later, unmarked black SUVs pulled up with federal agents flashing credentials and taking over from the locals. Agent Johnson was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested nothing could surprise her anymore. She wrapped thermal blankets around us both before leading us to one of the vehicles. "Your father is alive," she said without delay, and relief flooded through me like air after holding my breath. "He was ambushed in his hotel room tonight, but he managed to fend off the attacker and escape. He's in protective custody now and desperate to find you. Your mother's associates couldn't finish him, so they shifted focus to you too, likely planning to use you as bargaining chips to silence your father." Emma cried harder, a mix of relief and sheer exhaustion from the ordeal. "Where's Carol? Did you catch her?" Agent Johnson replied grimly. "She fled the scene before police could detain her. We have warrants for attempted murder, assault, fraud, and a long list of other offenses. Every agency in the state is hunting her, but she's shown she's skilled at vanishing when necessary." The ride to the FBI office passed in a haze of fatigue and disbelief. They ran us through intake, taking separate statements and recording every detail of the night in Carol's attack. Staff brought us meals, hot drinks, and more blankets, handling us gently as if we might break. Brian arrived at dawn, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. Bruises covered his face, his left arm was in a sling, and he walked stiffly, clearly in pain from his ribs. But when he saw us in the meeting room, tears streamed down his cheeks as he enveloped us in a fierce hug, prompting Emma to break down against him. "I'm so sorry," he kept repeating. "I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. I believed I could manage it discreetly. I thought I could shield you." In the hours that followed, the entire story came out. Carol had been running a real estate fraud operation for 6 years, using her license to facilitate money laundering for a syndicate. Brian had stumbled onto proof by chance. Discovered communications showing she wasn't merely involved, she was central to it. Instead of confronting her, he'd contacted the FBI. Spent 4 months quietly collecting evidence while acting like nothing was wrong. Carol's partners discovered his cooperation tonight due to a leak in the probe. They sent someone to his hotel to resolve the informant problem, but Brian's paranoia had led him to install extra security. He overpowered the intruder and got away, but only after firing off the warning text to us, realizing that if they targeted him, we'd be next. "She never meant to injure you directly," Brian said, his tone steady. "She aimed to snatch you before the FBI could, using you to pressure me into silence. But when you didn't return home, when you escaped, she lost control. The person who pursued you tonight wasn't your mother safeguarding her children. She was a crook defending her empire at any cost. The trial came 9 months later. Carol was captured at the Canadian border attempting to cross with fake papers and a substantial amount of cash. Brian and the FBI had compiled irrefutable proof, outlining years of deception and laundering involving millions. Carol received a 30-year sentence for fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and charges the prosecutor listed for 12 straight minutes. She never glanced at us in court, showed remorse, or offered any justification. The woman at the defense table was an unfamiliar figure wearing my mother's features, and it hit me then that we'd shared a home with a criminal all our lives, blind to it. Brian testified over 2 days, his voice resolute despite visible heartache, describing how he'd loved a woman who turned out to be an illusion, performing a role the whole time. Emma and I now live with Brian in a different state under limited witness protection. Not a full relocation or identity change, but sufficient measures to rest without visions of SUVs ramming our vehicle. We're both in counseling, processing the deception and trauma, and gradually rebuilding trust after our fundamental sense of family security was shattered. Brian is restarting his consulting business and working to forgive himself for missing the red flags earlier, for unknowingly placing us in a peril he couldn't have foreseen.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a twist. Stay tuned to Reddit Tales Times for your daily dose of drama, laughs, and unbelievable stories.